How's it going, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to my channel, The Cosmic Wonder, where we talk about all things MCU, and today it looks like we have a new character coming to the MCU in the Hawkeye series. And it looks like this character could reveal somewhat of a story plot for the Hawkeye series and possibly have a pretty big connection to the X-Men in the MCU. With all of the Marvel Phase 4 movies and shows coming out and being in production currently, we've had a lot of evidence suggesting that the mutants and X-Men will be coming to the MCU sooner than we thought. In fact, it looks like we could be seeing the mutants in the MCU as early on as the Black Widow film or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. But let's break down how Professor Xavier's school for gifted youngsters could be in the background of Marvel's Phase 4 and how it could have been in the background of the MCU's Infinity Saga this entire time. If you love Marvel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos and so you can enter this week's giveaway for a chance to win a Cyclops Funko Pop. Just subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment down below. So far in each project for Phase 4, Black Widow, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, etc., it looks like each project is going to introduce a mutant or mutants to the MCU. Now eventually this will lead up to many mutants existing in the MCU and eventually the X-Men will be formed. Now, based off of everything that we know from the comics and the story of the X-Men from the comics, the X-Men will most likely be formed by Professor X in the MCU. There is a chance that Marvel could switch that, but it's not likely. Which leads us to Professor Xavier's school for gifted youngsters. As the X-Men get introduced in the MCU, we'll undoubtedly see Professor Xavier's school show up. He'll try to recruit and help the younger mutants, and of course the older mutants will be teachers at the school. And yesterday we got confirmation that a new character is coming to the Hawkeye series who just so happens to be a gifted youngster. Yesterday, the Illuminati.com reported that Marvel Studios right now currently is casting for the role of Echo for the upcoming Hawkeye series. Now this is pretty exciting because we'll be getting the first deaf character in the MCU. In fact, the casting call reads as follows: Deaf, Native American, First Nations, Indigenous, and/or Latinx, independent, athletic, and bright. And it also says that the audition scene's dialogue is also set to be signed in American Sign Language. So this is really cool news, but here's the connection. Echo has quite an interesting origin story. Echo's real name is Maya, and Maya's father was Willie Crazy Horse Lincoln, and he was killed by Kingpin. But something really weird happened as he died. As he was dying, he actually asked Kingpin to raise his daughter, and Kingpin would go on to raise her as if she was his own child. Now, Maya is originally believed to be mentally disabled by Kingpin, so he sends her to a school for people with learning disabilities. However, they would go on to realize that she's not actually mentally disabled, but she's rather gifted. She is then sent to a school for prodigies. Now eventually Maya, through Daredevil, would go on to realize that Kingpin was actually the one that killed her father. And after practically taking down Kingpin, she runs away and then eventually would come back to the United States. She would go on to join the new Avengers as a version of Ronin, the same Ronin that Hawkeye had become in the past. Now obviously we know that Marvel Studios doesn't do an adaptation of a comic shot for shot. In fact, sometimes they don't even take stories from comics, but rather just characters and put them in new stories, which is great because if they just did the stories from the comics, we'd know everything that would happen. But Maya is going to be a youngster that is gifted and she's not going to have any parents. And currently right now with the Avengers and how the MCU is set up right now, there's nothing or no one really there to take her in. And that is where I believe Professor Xavier's school will come in. We know the mutants are coming, and whether or not this is formed from Wanda creating different realities and somehow creating the mutants, or whether the blip created mutants or not, it's coming. And it's going to be a refuge for new young mutants. And I think it's going to play a pretty pivotal role in the MCU in introducing the mutants and, down the road, the X-Men. However, she is going to pop up in the Hawkeye series first. And the fact that Echo is a deaf character and the fact that the actress that's going to be playing her needs to know American Sign Language points to the story of Hawkeye losing his hearing. Now, we've had rumors of this in the past before. Marvel Studios adapting the story arc in which Hawkeye loses his hearing. And the fact that Echo, a deaf character, is being cast for the Hawkeye series is further evidence that we could be getting the story. Now, Hawkeye's already going to be training Kate Bishop, who is also pretty young, which means that by the end of the Hawkeye series, he's going to be taking care of 2 young, new superheroes. But we know that they won't stay with him, so from here, Kate Bishop will most likely go on to join the new Avengers. And then Echo would go on to go to Professor Xavier's school. And from there, I think we're actually going to see a lot of other mutants that will pop up during Phase 4. Now, in the beginning, there may not be enough for an entire school. We may actually see Charles Xavier start the school. But by the end of Phase 4 or Phase 5, the school could be established and the X-Men could be established as well. So, let me know what you think about this. Do you think the X-Men and mutants have been lurking in the background of the MCU this entire time? Or do you think that somehow the snap caused mutants to exist, or there will be some other way? But regardless, these new mutants are going to need some help, and that's where Professor Xavier's school comes in. So, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. For live updates, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.